Alrighty. Let's see. Here we go. We got that. Give me 1 second, everybody. Okay, let's get this over here. Got the game on the other half of the screen. Alrighty. No comments just yet. That is cool. All right. Okay, everybody. I just finished up over on Caniac Sessions, and now I'm going to just sit here and watch the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs, considering the Carolina Hurricanes will be playing against one of these teams next round. And we can talk a little bit about, the prospective opponents here. Right now, Florida has a 3-2 lead in the series, and the score of this game is currently 0-0. Florida has 3 shots on goal to Toronto's 1, and I'll make that 2 apiece for shots because they retroactively corrected it, as they usually do, and there is 11:47 remaining in the first period. All righty, let's see here. Reinhardt was right there on the doorstep for that one. Oh, no, I'm getting the spin. What's going on here, dude? Come on. There we go. Okay, so my stream cut out for a second. Apparently, there's a tripping call. OEL and Verhage are having some words with each other. Is this their second power play of the game? Because I didn't turn it on until about 12 minutes left in the first. This is a good play by Max Domi to keep that puck off of Reinhardt's stick because we know how dangerous he is. Yeah, second power play for Florida. Okay, cool. Advertising cars that most people can't afford. That makes a lot of sense. If you want an Infiniti and you want to save yourself about 25 grand, if not more, just buy a fucking Nissan. All right. Yeah, Florida's power play is something I definitely want to take a really, really deep look at here because that could be something that's, that's an important thing to talk about is special teams going into, going into any series, but with as well as Carolina's penalty kill has been, you might want to have an idea of what you're going up against should you be playing against Florida or Toronto. I actually think the penalty killing that Carolina has against Toronto would absolutely eat their top unit alive to the point where they'd have to put a defenseman back on it just to keep from getting scored on. I legitimately believe that. And the stall line against, Marner, Matthews, and Nyes, you don't have to stop them from scoring, every waking second of the game, but you could negate them enough at that point to where it would be a whole lot harder for them to, get a lot out of that top line. It's a pretty good defensive play there by Matthews. Marner clears it. All Canes Network. What's up, Tony? I think we have a better shot versus Toronto, but I'm still confident versus Florida. I think we could beat either one. I think that if Carolina plays Florida, they'd have to drag them to 7 and beat them and use every ounce of home ice advantage to get it done. Toronto, I think you could take them in 6 or 7. I don't see either scenario being less than 6 games, though. If Carolina plays Florida and it's a 6-game series, Carolina probably lost. Just to be perfectly honest, was that as things stand right now. See, that's another thing to consider with Florida. They have 2 really, really good power play units. All Canes Network says we said the same thing versus the Caps and we beat them in 5. Yeah, that was not what I expected. I expected Carolina to win that series, but I expected it to be in 7. I really did. All the estimations I did pointed to. So basically, what happened to Washington in the last, particularly in games 3, 4, and 5, is what I expected to happen over the course of game 5, 6, and 7, where they couldn't solve Carolina on the defensive side of things. And eventually, when it turns into a war of attrition through speed, you can't hit people if you can't catch them. And the Caps would be dead in the legs. And that happened, but it happened a lot sooner than what I personally anticipated. That being said, I also remember saying earlier, Nye's just about tucked that in. God, I wish the Hurricanes could get him. I know they won't, but Kirby says, E, how did Marner not score there? I don't know. See, another thing I noticed with the Leafs, they like the quick exits. They're not super controlled. They don't do it with numbers, and it's the same thing with the entries. They just want to get it up ice as quickly as possible and get to the other end. And that's where Carolina's ability to shut down neutral zone transition and then turn it back on them could really come in handy against a team like this, particularly against their bottom 2 lines. It's going to be hard to do that against Matthew, Marner, and Nice. And Tavares' line, that's going to be hard to do it against them as well. But I think Carolina could actually potentially exploit something like that. When it comes to Florida, the way that, that's a deep team. Their defense is really good. I'd say it's almost on par with Carolina's. Their bottom 6 is really good. Their depth players are really good. Their top 6 is not too top heavy. The team is not entirely reliant on it, but it's still really good. Their center depth are all guys who can play a really solid 200-foot game. What it comes down to in a theoretical Carolina and Florida matchup, not too dissimilar from the last time they played, it would come down to a stand and fight mentality. You would just have to win it shift by shift. There's not going to be anything you do definitively better than them, and you just can't let them do anything definitively better than you. And Gus Forsling pretending he's tough. That's cute. He's a good hockey player, but like the only people I've ever seen that think he's better than Slavin are Panthers fans. And I'm sorry, Forsling is not remotely close to Slavin. They're not even in the same discussion. No, it's just about tucked that one home. Bobrovsky got the toe out there. All right, we're back to another overpriced Nissan commercial. But yeah, as soon as we know how this series is going to, I'm hoping Toronto can manage to force Game 7. Aaliyah Yasmin said, "Who's better than Slavin?" Nobody. And if you're talking shutdown defenseman, but because of a very ill-advised and stupid thing that NHL Network posted when they did their top 50 players last season, they listed Gustav Forsling as the 21st best player in the league, and everybody in the comments that was blowing him was basically saying, oh, he may not put up a ton of points, but he shuts down the other team and still puts up about 30 points a season, and he's a great penalty killer. He shuts down the other team's best players. yada, yada, yada. There's hardly a goal scored. He doesn't take any penalties. And I'm like, motherfucker, people have been saying this shit about Jacob Slavin for a decade, and now all of a sudden you want to notice it. But I mean, then again, this is a team that walked all the way through Fort Lauderdale with the Stanley Cup in their hand, and hardly anybody noticed. And I went to Fort Lauderdale in January. It's a wonderful place, but like we stayed there and I was walking around and we saw maybe 4 or 5 people wearing Panthers stuff. And one of those was a game day because that's one of the reasons we went down there. Now, that being said, all their fans that I met were really fucking cool. And their arena is really, really nice. It's in a weird spot, kind of. A lot of people say that about Lenovo, but Amarant Bank Arena, I actually really liked it. That was the highest I'd ever sat at a hockey game because I've usually been a lower bowl guy, but then I sat at the 300s when I was at Game 3 in this past series, and I actually really liked it. If I get season tickets in the future, which is totally a possibility, me getting a partial pack or something like that, I want to go a couple rows back from that if I do keep setting up high. One day I want to sit in the 200s just for the hell of it, just to see what it's like, if I got some extra cash laying around. All right, let's see what we got here. OEL. See, Florida really likes to try and shut down the entries as well. And they did it there, and it results in a hand pass and a stoppage of play. All Canes Network says, I know it might not happen, but I want to see Nikishin and Lenovo. I think that all depends on Chatfield's health. The way he played the other night, and this is something that I'm going to do. I'm going to do some extensive. I'm going to do some extensive talking about this when I finally get the chance to do damage report in regards to the series. I'm just going to do one where I talk about Game 5 and the series as a whole. I'm probably going to do that sometime tomorrow evening. I planned on doing it tonight, but we decided we wanted to do Caniac sessions because we hadn't got to do that in a while. And I really enjoyed it. I love those guys, and I love being their third host. But what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to talk about that in particular. And I think the kid played well enough that I wasn't expecting him to go out there and be earth-shattering. I wasn't expecting him to be so good that, okay, we have to scratch somebody and put him in. But he was good enough to play. Yeah, I'm trying to watch the game. Sorry, I'm stuttering so much. I'm trying to watch the game and talk at the same time and answer comments and everything. See, Florida's working really hard to keep Toronto on the exterior. This is one of those things where I think Carolina playing the man-on-man defense with Toronto could exploit similar things against them if they were to win this series. But yeah, Nikishin didn't go out there and pull a Cale Makar or anything like that. He played about as well as you would hope. And you can, safely say, all right, if we have to integrate him into the lineup, if he has to start playing more minutes, he's starting to get things down and he'll figure it out. Matthew P says, "Sup, I didn't know you were going live." Yeah, I just kind of randomly decided to. I was going to post it earlier, but I've just kind of chilled out today because I'm going to start working again sometime in the next few days. I'm just waiting on them to tell me when my start date is. And that's for my part-time job I'm going to do for the next few months. And then in August, I have a full-time job I'll be starting then. I'm just waiting on them to get the contract for it. And then I will be back to working full-time. But I have enjoyed taking a month off of working because all I've done for the last 7 fucking years is work. It feels like. Matthew P says, now I can pick your brain about D-Man playing their offside, LOL. Every time I see a D-Man making an ozone pinch on the backhand, it looks super awkward. Speaking from experience, albeit I'm only a veterans tournament and beer league player because I normally play defense. And if I'm not playing defense, I'm playing center, which is, I play it like a third defenseman. It is incredibly awkward. The thing that makes it different for a guy like Orlov is he's already someone who gaps up kind of aggressively and uses his body. And the same thing goes for Nikishin, but I would still want him on the left, at least for right now. He gaps up and he can use his feet a lot to make that happen. It's not the most ideal thing, but it's also if there's anybody on this team I would trust to play their offside, it would be Orlov. And eventually, maybe down the line, Nikishin, but You comfy? You were just sitting in the other beach chair. Now you went over to that one. Is there a reason for that? My dog's nuts. But yeah, as far as it being a roster construction thing, I saw your other comment here. As far as it being a roster construction thing, that's what's kind of where I've got some reluctancy about it, because like you can't afford to trade Ghost right now because Nikishin is going to be on the power play at some point or another. But if Burns is gone and Ghost is gone, then your power play options come down to Walker and Slavin pretty much. Walker can do it, but he doesn't have a ton of experience there. Slavin can do it, but the only thing is Slavin, like, don't get me wrong, Slavin's a capable power play quarterback, but I wouldn't want him doing it except in very select emergency situations, primarily because of how many minutes he already puts in 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill. Because I felt like okay, I was doing the highlight package I made of Nikishin. I was doing the highlight package I was doing of Nikishin, and I felt like that Jacob Slavin was out there the whole game. Like, that's what it really felt like. So I'm waiting to see what they do in regards to that. I understand the rationale of bringing Orlov back, but one of the things that people would start talking about is, okay, well, you can trade Ghost. But then again, it's like, I'm against that because who's going to run the power play at that point? You're putting more minutes on Slavin, more minutes on Walker, and those guys need to be playing together 5-on-5 and not even be worried about either one of them being on the power play together. So that way you can keep the pairs, relatively flush over the course of a game. Nikishin, I think he'll start out next season on the second power play unit, and before too long, he'll be on the top power play unit. And as I've noticed here with Florida tonight, they have two pretty deep power play units. So I would like for Carolina to get to that point. All Canes Network says too ho. Don't. Oh shit! I'm sorry. Who should replace Burns if you want Ghost and Nikishin on the PP? Well, at that point, it's like, yeah, Ghost. No, I'm not saying they'd be on the same power play. Ghost would still be the top unit guy. Nikishin would be the second unit guy, and eventually you would flip them. And I also think with the way the roster could potentially look next season, you're going to have enough players to where you can actually set up two pretty solid power play units instead of having a minute and a half for one and 30 seconds for the second unit. You could set up good enough to where, or you could have two solid units and split it a little bit more evenly, like maybe a minute 15 and 45 seconds, or even go as far as letting them both have a minute. Nikishin would be the PPQB without Ghost. Yeah, he would, but I think he needs to start out on the second unit. Eventually, I think he would take over the top unit. Now, if he's not here, then you could put Walker out there on one of the units if Ghost isn't here and Nikishin is. So I'm wondering how all that's going to work out. I'm really waiting to see how that goes. I've got a feeling they're going to bring Orlov back for Nikishin. If it's for one season, then it's not too much damage, and as long as he's not coming back for the same AAV, which I don't think that he would. So we'll see. But yeah, having 4 LHDs is going to be that's going to be an interesting thing to see how they sort that out. I'm not sure how they would go about it. That's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, you're right, Aaliyah. We need Ghost. Like, that's someone who's yeah. Matthew P says Nikishin reminds me so much of Chris Pronger. Yeah, he reminds me a little bit of him. But I think he's like, I know I've said this before, so forgive me for repeating it. When it comes to Nikishin, I see a player who's a hybrid of Shea Weber and Victor Hedman. That's what I see more than anything. A little bit more towards the Shea Weber side. Between the hitting and the heavy shot, still being solid defensively and being an all situations guy, which is what I think Nikishin is going to turn into. I think that's why I feel like he's a Shea Weber type of player. Matthew P says, I agree, we need Ghost, but that's why I'd let Orlov go. Yeah, see, Orlov and Burns would be the two guys that you definitely let go in that situation, but I just have a feeling the Canes are going to bring back Orlov for Nikishin's sake, unless they think that as far as translating stuff and, helping him get acclimated in North America, if they feel like Svachenko Chekhov can do that, then, you know, you don't have anything else to worry about in that regard. Hey, buddy. All Canes Network says, I mean, if Ghost is QB on PP1 and Nikishin on PP2, who would Tulsi call up sign to replace Burns' spot in the lineup? At that point, if they were to bring back Orlov, then you're going to have what I would imagine would happen is Slavin and Walker for the top pair. That's what I really want to see. Some way they need to make that happen. Sasha and Dima for the second pair, and then Chatty and Ghost for the third pair, because we already know from a couple of seasons ago they worked out really well together. Matthew P says Pronger was kind of a cross between Hedman and Weber. Yeah, that's true too. I think that's why I kind of made that connection there. Evan Smith says Nikishin fooled me with his baby face. He looked a lot bigger out there than I expected. That dude's a presence. Even with 9 other skaters out there, you can tell where he is all the time. He's just a big kid, and he's just got this presence. Nikishin swatted Mangiapane aside like a fly. Yeah, he did. Yeah, Leonard had to use all of his body weight to knock Nikishin over. And then he went and ran Connor McMichael over like he was fucking nothing. He absolutely put him on his ass, and he wasn't even going full flight when he did it. Nikishin's first shifts where he stole Ovi's stick was hilarious. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I didn't even realize what Boucher was talking about until after I saw the video of it later online. I was like, oh, okay. All right, let's see what we got here for this game going on here. This one's actually pretty tame so far. It's not so fast yet. Matthew P says, okay, so we going after Marner or no? I think that depends on if they sign him. If they sign him, then there's a multitude of ways I see that playing out. I don't know what's going on in Toronto's front office, clearly. It's hard to interpret, are they going to keep Marner or are they going to keep Nyes? The one thing we know for a fact is they don't have the money to keep them both. That's just not going to happen. I personally would rather have Nyes. If there was some sort of way to make that happen, if we wanted to offer sheet him at the bracket that he would have to be in, we have to go get our third rounder back from Utah. To which my buddy Griff over on Caniac Session said, bye, KK. And I said, don't even talk about that. Don't say that type of shit around me. I would much rather have Nyes. I think that if they're looking at it from a salary standpoint, they'd rather keep Nyes because he won't command as much money as Marner. The problem with it is that Toronto is not going to be competitive all throughout Matthew Nyes' career. Marner, on the other hand, if they're in win now mode, then, it might be more advantageous for them to keep him, depending on who they let go of, though, because clearly Nyes, he's an RFA. If they sign Marner, they need to start picking up the phone immediately and trying to trade for Nyes. If they can't trade for him, get the third back from Utah. If you got to offer up something and then use those offer sheet assets to try and get him, even though they would probably match it. There's a multitude, we could afford to give up something of not too great a value to get that third rounder back from Utah. I'd rather Carolina just try to trade for him in that regard. Now, if they don't let Nyes go and Marner hits free agency, Carolina needs to go after him hard. At that point, he becomes your number one free agent target. If you manage to get a hold of Nyes through trade, then I think Ehlers becomes the number one trade target at that point. Because there's no way that Marner and Nyes both are leaving Toronto. One of them is going to stay in some way or another. It's going to happen. Gumprunner CLT says, give me Matthew Nyes over Mitch Marner all day. Nyes would bring toughness and physicality that we could use in Carolina. Another thing in regards to Matthew Nyes, and I hate to mention this sorry bastard, but I have to in this case. Matthew Nyes has a similar, not identical, but similar skill set to Mikko Rantanen in terms of being that guy who can bowl his way to the front of the net and stick a puck in a coin slot, and someone who creates not just a net front presence, but a skilled net front presence that can tip pucks or hold on to them for the extra second to make that little 3 or 4 foot pass and, slip a puck in where there's not a lot of space, and can do it on the backhand, do it on the forehand, has a high shot velocity, but can also go in the corners, go below the goal line and dig pucks out. That is more of Matthew Nye's skill set. He's more in line with being that type of player, but he's got the size, he's got the physical. I would say he's more physical than Mikko, but that would be similar effects to what we would need from there. Now, if you get Nyes is a left winger through and through, then you could put Aho with Jarvis and Nyes and leave Jarvis in his secondary natural position of right wing, or you can put someone else on right wing. And one thing I've said in the past is Jarvis should probably, I know people worry about his size, but people said the same thing about Aho. I wouldn't mind seeing Jarvis get an extended look at center. Everything that stopped Rod from trying Natchez at center doesn't apply to Jarvis. So that's what I would do in that case. Cabry the Cane says, you probably get this all the time, but how Marner playing and with available UFA, RFA, if you could say 1-2 players from free agency, which ones are you taking? So if Marner does hit free agency, I think you have to make a run at him. Just because he's far too good of a player, that not just a good player, but the fact that he would fit, because he's very defensively minded. He's got a good 200-foot game. He can kill penalties and produce all the offense on top of that. I think you have to go get a guy like that to take Aho to the next level, i.e. what was so coveted about Carolina trying to keep Getzel. So if you can't get him, then I would say number 2 is Nikolai Ehlers. Nikolai Ehlers is the lowest risk, highest reward, I think, signing you could get. Number 3, you have to be careful with this just because the injury history, even though it doesn't seem to bother him as much anymore, is Brock Besser, strictly because of how well he can shoot. And I think that alone, a guy like him with, someone who's as good of a playmaker like Aho is going to pay dividends, and you wouldn't have to pay him nearly as much as the 2 guys in front of him on that list. That's my top 3. And I think that's everybody's top 3. So it just kind of comes down to what is and isn't available. Let me mute this for a second. Matthew P says, LOL, beat me to it. Yeah. Aaliyah Yasmin says, no way, Toronto, let's go of Nyes, unfortunately. Yeah, I think that's who they're going to keep. Now, if they sign Marner, if we hear about him getting an extension, Tulsky needs to get on the phone and be like, you can't keep Nyes. What do you want? And it needs to be a sign and trade in the case of someone like Nyes, because he's not a pending UFA, he's an RFA. But it's also like, if you can get a sign and trade, great. But if you just trade for his rights while he's an RFA and you pay a little bit extra to get it done, that's totally fine too. Cavery says, realistically, yeah, that's my 3 targets. Marner would be, if you can get him, you absolutely have to. But Marner is also the highest risk, highest reward signing, if you ask me. Ehlers is low risk, high reward. You kind of know what you're going to get with him, and you won't have to pay him nearly as much as what you would have to pay Marner. Besser fills a need, wouldn't have to break the bank. Low risk, potentially high reward, but probably not nearly as good of a return as you would get on Marner or Ehlers if you could bring either one of those guys in. And I've said for months now, I'm really confident Nikolai Ehlers in some way or another, he's going to end up being a Hurricane, regardless of how the other stuff shakes out. But as far as like a dream player that Rod would absolutely love, Nikolai Ehlers is like, the way I like to describe Nikolai Ehlers, he falls in between. So imagine a player who is not as good as Seth Jarvis, but better than Jordan Martinook, but has a hybrid skill set between those two. That's Nikolai Ehlers to a T, if you ask me. Gee, I wonder if Paul Bissonnette likes the Maple Leafs. Matthew P says, I know Marner made some boneheaded plays last game, but I think our system could do worlds of good for him if he committed to it. I think it could too, because it's like Toronto's not got this. No matter how long, the entire time he's been there, no matter who they've had for a coach, whether it was Keith or whoever, they've never been as defensively minded as Rod is. Berube is a lot closer to a defensive coach than Keefe was. So I think Marner could thrive in a system like this because he's got some damn wheels. He cares about playing defense. I think he would be really good there. And like I said, that opens up an opportunity for maybe Jarvis to be tried out at center. I would, if they can solve that problem in-house without having to, if they could solve that problem in-house without having to make any trades and give up any assets to do it. We saw how well that worked out with Aho when they did the internal hire thing to put him at center. But Matthew, I'm also going to look into that kid that you sent me. I pulled up some of his numbers and stuff, and I'm going to like find some videos of him and everything. He might be a good choice. You might be onto something here. All Canes Network says we should be able to get our third back pretty easily thanks to Dallas. Yeah, we should. Matthew P. also says, yeah, if Toronto doesn't win a cup in the next 3 years, Matthews will leave too. Yeah, and by then maybe Arizona will have another team and he'll go back. You know, I wonder how much Matthews actually wants to be there just based on some of the contracts that he signed, where it's like low-term, high AAV, because he was the one who kind of set the market for bridge deals for RFAs that walked into UFAs. Like, he was the first one that really did that. I don't remember anybody doing it before him, where he's like, I'm taking 5 years instead of 8 and dictating my fate a lot more over the course of several years. Kenny X Sessions, Mitch Marner's playoff beard is pathetic. Yeah, what beard? Matthew P says Marner is like a little bit better Teravainen. Yeah, a Teravainen with less hesitancy to shoot and a lot more speed. Michael Lewis says, for some odd reason, since people keep saying it, I am not in Missouri Mike 13, tired of people talking about it. Know nothing about the game of Twitter. Kenny X Sessions, Jackson Blake's playoff beard looks better than Marner's, and Blake's is awful too. Yeah, Blake's not got much going on there, but he's also young, so it might change later. Besser is slow. That's the only problem with him. That's the thing. If it came down to him or Ehlers, I'd rather have Ehlers. Besser should only be on the radar if like we don't have anything else we can do to improve the roster. That's the only other issue with Besser, is that he's slow. He's not low effort. He's just not very fast. I do like Ehlers. I think Ehlers would be a great fit. Dylan Bollinger says, I think Ehlers would probably be a better fit. Aaliyah Yasmin says, I want Turbo and Gensel back. So in regards to Turbo, other people have heard me say this on here before. I've had this feeling since he signed in Chicago. I see Carolina bringing him back, loading up for a playoff run next season or season after next. Like grabbing him as a rental because you already know that he works well with Aho, and they would just grab him and be like, here, go play with him again. I have a feeling. I have a feeling they're going to do that. I think had the cap situation not been what it was, they probably wouldn't have hesitated to bring him back last time. And it was kind of weird to me that they didn't when I saw what Chicago paid him. And I'm like, oh, we could have done that. But we also didn't need another undersized playmaking winger who hesitated to shoot. But I can see them grabbing him as a supplemental piece at the deadline next season or season after next. Or I have a feeling Teuvo Teravainen has not played his last game as a Hurricane. I just something tells me that. Evan Smith says, do we really want Marner? I think he would be a great addition as long as the money is right. And like I said, it's a high risk, high reward. Whereas Ehlers, low risk, high reward, if you ask me. If Orlov is gone, who do you put to being alongside Nikishin? Legault's not ready. In the future, I would like to see that. Right now, that would just be Chatfield by him. And then as far as who you put to the right of Slavin, that's Walker. That would be Slavin or Walker. Or I'm sorry, Slavin with Walker. If you have Morrow call up, you can put Morrow with Slavin. If Morrow's on the team, I think he has to be with Slavin. He's very much a fourth forward, in my opinion. I think he can still refine that defensive side of his game to the point where he can take care of himself on the defensive side of things a little bit better. But I ultimately believe that Morrow needs to be with Slavin if he's in the lineup, but I'm also kind of not expecting him to be here next season. I have a feeling they're going to trade him. That's just speculation on my part. I have absolutely nothing to back that up. other than like just some of the interviews where Rod's talked about him a couple of times. I'm like, I don't know if he's going to fit here long term. I really don't. I know I made the comparison to Jake Bean. I was comparing the situation, not necessarily the player, because I think Morrow is a significantly better player all around than Jake Bean ever was. And certain other people whom you already know who I'm talking about love Jake Bean. I cannot stand him. I did not like him when he played here at all. I just didn't see I didn't see it personally. Let's see. Matthew P says that if he signs with us, that would show he's committed to our system, which is no secret. It's the worst kept secret in the National Hockey League. The Hurricane system is. Dylan Bollinger says Ehlers wants to be a top line center. He can't with the Jets because that's for Connor, and rightfully so. Ehlers is a winger, actually. Or we could just trade for Tage Thompson. I would love that. That's one of those times where I'm like, yeah, package up Morrow and get it done. I think in order for Tage Thompson to become available, though, I think Buffalo's going to have at least one more bad season. I don't think they'll give him up yet. But if they have another bad season, I could see them being like, all right, this isn't working. We got to fix some things. We got to retool some things. And they've got a really good prospect pool, too. So if they wanted to add to it, they could get a lot for Tage Thompson, and it might, like I'm not in Tage Thompson's head or anything, but the guy's an incredible hockey player, and he's got to be getting tired of losing. I don't know if he would want to stay there at that point. So Devil's Joint, what's up, buddy? Says, let's go Cats. Evan Smith, no one should take him unless it's a steal. Yeah, that's the thing. If Marner's going to come in here and ask for more than like 11 and a half, let him go and get Ehlers. Ehlers is the one guy for a fact would be a near perfect fit, though. That's the one thing. Mitch Marner has playoff prepubescent face. Nice as thick. Holy shit. Yeah, no, he's a big boy. And he can skate really, really, really well. He can skate incredibly well for his size. That was one of the big things about Eric Lindros when he played. One of the things that made him so coveted, people said they never saw a player that big skate that smoothly and that fast. Matthew Nyes is a lot like that. Matthew P says, honestly, I wouldn't hate trading for Turbo back with salary retained. Yeah, I see that happening. Trade deadline next season, I can totally see that, especially if someone's injured. I could absolutely see the Canes doing that. I really could. Dylan Bollinger says, everyone wants Nadeau coming up, want Turbo back, and for us to sign Marner, Ehlers, etc. Who are we letting go? Roslovic is more than likely gone. Robinson, even though I wanted him to stay, is more than likely gone, but they got Hall signed. So I think he's going to be a casualty of that. Those two guys will be gone. That'll make some room. That's about all I know for a fact that will be gone. Turbo, like I said, Turbo coming back is not like something I think is going to happen in the offseason. And it's nothing that I'm, 100% convinced is going to happen. But if I had a crystal ball, I have a feeling that's what I would see, is that Carolina grabs him at the deadline and they're like, well, we already know that you know how to fit in the system. They put him back with Aho and Svechnikov or something like that and, do that to supplement the lineup in some way or another. I could just see them doing that. Josh DiSavino, welcome to the show. Leafs fan here, highly likely we'll let Marner walk. We all know he's an incredibly skilled guy, but I can say with confidence he is not the guy. A great secondary, yes, but his IQ consistently lets him down. Yeah, and Carolina already has players who are the guy. Marner wouldn't have to be the guy here, but he would be parallel to the guy. Him being on Aho's right and maybe opening up opportunities for Jarvis to be the, play his position he was drafted to play, or if either one of those guys can play left wing. I don't know if Marner's ever played left wing. Jarvis, I saw him doing it when Rantanen was here for that brief time, and I thought he looked good there. So there's a multitude of options there. Now, if you go out and get Ehlers' role is pretty definitive for the Hurricanes. He'll be the guy to the left of Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis, more than likely. All Canes Network, who should we trade Morrow for? He has high value right now. Tage Thompson has been mentioned in this chat, and that's one of the guys that I would gladly give Morrow up to get. Dylan Larkin, someone like that. But I think those things are dependent on their respective teams having another bad season. Well, I won't even say Detroit had a bad season. They were playing meaningful games right up until the end the last couple of seasons. That's why I think Tage would be available before Larkin would. I think if Buffalo has one more bad season, either they're going to see Tage as someone they have to trade to make the team competitive later, or Tage is going to want out himself, potentially. Like I said, I don't know any of these guys, but if I were a betting man, I would say that Tage Thompson is not going to want to be there after another losing season. He is way too good of a hockey player to be kept out of the playoffs as much as he is. Matthew P says, yeah, Jake Bean was a putz. Yeah, I never liked him. Every time he played for us, I was kind of like, this guy's Ryan Murphy 2.0. I don't want, nah, fuck that. Matthew Brown says, I didn't expect Nikishin to light up the building in his debut, but containing Ovi twice all by himself with his offensively styled defensive, once he cleans up the small things, he will be a lethal weapon. Yeah, he's got some learning to do, but we saw the floor, and the floor is really high. So sky's the limit for this kid. I really believe that. Dylan Bollinger says Morrow gets traded and with Nikishin signed, who is a top defensive prospect, then Nystrom, Badinka, or Legault. So I would put Nystrom and Badinka in separate categories from Legault. Nystrom and Badinka, you have some two-way and offensive game with those guys to some degree or another. Legault, it's like one day Nystrom or Badinka could be quarterbacking the power play. Legault is and I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm demeaning him. I don't want to call him one-dimensional. Legault's skill set is very, very much shut down, almost modern stay-at-home style defense. He's not going to join the rush a whole bunch. He's going to deny entry. He's going to poke check people. He's going to block shots. And he's going to lay people out. Dylan also asks, what if we pay Marner what Dallas paid for Miko? No. No, that's only $12 million. 11.5 is where you got to kind of start thinking about, maybe not. I don't know. Devil's Joint says Ehlers is solid. Yeah, and, you guys are going to make a big push for Ehlers, too, if Carolina doesn't get him, I think. All right, game's back up. We'll get to more of the comments here in a little bit. We'll do that at TV timeouts and such things. That was a pretty low shot period. The first period, it was only 7 for Toronto and 2 for the Panthers. All right, let's watch how this transition play goes here. See, that's one of the things I was talking about with Florida. E2 Lusterinen, the way that he read that play in the neutral zone, that's where it's going to be unstoppable force meets a movable object if Carolina and Florida are to play, is they're going to be playing pong with each other in the neutral zone a whole lot because both those teams love to deny transition. Florida doesn't do it so much with speed as they do, good hand-eye and physicality, whereas Carolina, they just skate up to you really quick, take it away, and try and take it the other way. Carolina's biggest advantage against almost any team is speed. When it comes to the Florida Panthers, if they were to play them, it'll be no different. Toronto, also a very fast team, but they don't manage the puck as well as Florida does, in my opinion, at least not in the neutral or the defensive zone from what I've seen. And like I said, the dynamic of things will change to some degree or another in the next round. Well, saw that one all the way. We're going to get to a couple more comments here. Ali Yasmin said Matthew Nice has an F1 driver's neck. Yeah, no, he's a big kid. Like he's built like a damn football player. Like he could have been a linebacker if he wasn't a hockey player. Like, and he moves incredibly well. Like his skating for his size, like I've said before. Devil's Joint says the Lindros Quebec debacle is a great story. Yeah, there's a documentary I watched about that. I forget what it was called, but it was really good. Dylan Bollinger says Nikishin for his size can move great forwards and backwards and side to side. Yeah, I love his skating ability. I definitely think his power skating, his north-south speed is definitely better than his edge work and going east-west. That's not to say that his edge work is bad, but I see someone who is much more of a power skater than an edge work guy. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, with the way that he plays the game. Matthew P says, yeah, Tage might want out of Buffalo soon enough anyway. I can see that happening. If they have another bad season, like, hell, if they don't even get off to a good start this next time, I could see, like, either Tage is like, okay, I've had enough, I want out of here, or people start making phone calls and eventually Buffalo gets an offer that they can't, that Kevin Adams can't say no to. Matthew P says probably Badinka is the best D-man prospect now with Nikishin graduated. I could see that. And like I said, I wouldn't even categorize him and Legault in the same category. You know, Badinka's got some two-way game, some offensive game, and, you know, whereas with Legault, you kind of already know what you're going to get. Like, speaking of that, Legault is a Brett Pesce clone. Yeah, I think he'll ultimately be a little bit more physical, but Brett Pesce was physical as fuck. And honestly, if it wasn't for him separating his shoulder and all the other injuries he had from the physical game that he used to play, he's probably still here. Because like, he was a great player. I like him. I know I posted memes and stuff about him, but I don't hate the guy by any means. He was one of my favorite players because, you know, right-handed shutdown defensemen are normally my favorite players. Shutdown defensemen in general. That's why I like Slavin so much. But he just, when the injuries started piling up with him, the physicality started to go down, and I feel like that took a little bit away from his game. But he never had anything bad to say about anybody here. And, you know, if Legault is a Brett Pesce clone with a little bit more of a desire to hit people, I'm totally fine with that. The one thing I hope that Legault does not have is Brett Pesce's shot, because Brett Pesce's shot can be measured by a fucking sundial. It is so slow. And I mean that with all the respect in the world to the guy, but he cannot shoot a puck worth a damn. He is worse at shooting a puck than KK is at skating. And I remember I got a comment one time, bro, why you hating on KK skating? Why you hate KK? I'm like a top 5 Yes Barry Kotkaniemi advocate, but I'm not going to pretend that he can skate well. Like, he does a lot of shit really well, but he cannot fucking skate. And that's a good thing. Yeah, I agree. Matthew Brown says, when his rookie deal expires, how long would you sign Nikishin for? If you're Eric Tolsky, I want him here a very long term. 8 years. He will get the max of 8 years if he can do that, because he's not a regular RFA. I think he's called an exclusive rights player or something like that. Walt posted something about that. I'll pull it up here at the intermission if I can find it and elaborate on that. But he's not even a traditional RFA. He basically can't play anywhere else unless Carolina trades him. Excuse me. Dylan Bollinger says 2 former Canes for the Leafs out there. That was okay. Good save by Wall there. 2 former Canes for the Leafs out there. Yep. Pacioretty and Lorentz. And I really liked Steven Lorentz. That would be one thing that would suck about playing Toronto in the Eastern Conference Finals. I have to. I don't want to cheer against Steven Lorentz. I really liked him, but at that point you have to. Matthew P says prediction: Toronto will win tonight and only to lose Game 7 because they're the New York Mets of the NHL. Speaking of that, you guys are still leading. You guys are still leading the NL East, right? Because the Braves haven't really recovered from that 0-7 start yet. Like, yeah, you guys are still half a game up in the NL East. Oh, the Braves are only 3 games back now and 2.5 back of the Phillies. All right, that's good news. The fact the Braves were ever behind the Marlins and the Nationals is fucking embarrassing. I'll be watching a lot of baseball here in about 3 or 4 weeks regardless. Matthew P says they keep finding new and creative ways to break the hearts of their fans. Yeah, I feel bad for a lot of them at this point. Squirrely Bird, if you're watching this, I hope you guys can pull it out tonight. I really do. E2 Lucerina is someone I wish we'd really kept. What a good draft pick, though. Yeah. But I understand why they made that trade at the time, because if I remember correctly, that was the Trocheck trade that he was involved in, and we had to make that one at the time. It worked out really well for a little bit. Dang, the block shots difference is wild. I remember Tripp seemed to be very high on Nystrom. Yeah, I remember him talking about him when they got him over. Nystrom is solid too. 4 to 6 D-man, which is pretty good for a 7th round pick. Any 7th round pick that looks like they can be a mainstay in an NHL lineup is a good one, but especially in that regard that you're talking about there. Any late round pick that becomes a mainstay NHL player, you did good. Dropping by to say hi. Let's go. Kane says Frank the Tank. Good to see you, buddy. The other Frank the Tank is over here laying on the ground, soaking up the fan because it's a little warm in here. Nikishin gets an 8-year extension. Should get it on July 1st this year. Yeah, without a doubt. Just get it done. Domi also played for the Canes, so 3 actually. Yeah, briefly at the deadline. I straight up forgot about him. The hero of Game 7 versus the Bruins. Kirby says, didn't Domi play first? Yep, he did. All Canes Network, haven't been paying much attention to the MLB. The Hurricanes are too important right now. Yeah, I haven't either. The only thing I've really done with the Braves is I check the scores, and that's it. But this time of year, that's all I do. So it's like I watch games if I have nothing else to do at that particular moment. But hockey's always priority 1. But then when the Canes are out, then immediately I'm like, okay, cool. Let me get my tomahawk back out. And the only time that I've ever watched baseball over hockey was when the Braves were in. So so when they were in the NLDS in 2021 versus the Brewers, I was basically watching the NLDS on my phone while watching the hockey game. And then if the hockey game was over, then if the Hurricanes game was over, then I'd switch over to watching the NLDS when they were playing the Brewers. And then NLCS time, I did the same thing up until Game 6. And I remember the Canes weren't playing that night. And that was the night that Tyler Matzik came in to save Luke Johnson's ass because there were runners on 2nd and 3rd. Bellinger was on base, and I was like, anything to right field, and he's in. I'm trying to remember who else was on base. I can't remember right now. Tyler Matzik came in there and struck out Mookie Betts, Daniel Souza, it was Albert Pujols, Daniel Souza, and Mookie Betts in that order. He struck all 3 of them out on 11 pitches. If he didn't do that, the Braves don't win the World Series. They don't get past the Dodgers. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, the Dodgers are going to fucking win this game, and then they're going to kill us in 7. And luckily, they never got there. Thank you, Tyler Matzik. Evan Smith says Florida is starting to get going. Yeah, it looks like it from me glancing in between the two here. Ali Yasmin says, what do you think about Stank and Blake's extensions look like? Give me some time to give that some thought. Because normally when I do those contract extension estimations, I don't really go for ballpark numbers. I try to get really close. And I was like, the only contract extension that I was super off on, super fucking off on, was Slavin's. And that's because he voluntarily took a very large pay cut. Jarvis's, I was really close on Jarvis. I think I was within $250K on his average annual value. It was something like that. I wasn't far off. See, I'm wondering if Matthews is like hurt and playing through something, or if he's just legit not a playoff guy. Like, I would like to think that's not true about a player that's as good as he is, but see, Marner got kind of lost defensively there in the zone. When Reinhart came in on entry there, he like tried to cut across the ice and get a stick on him, but it was too late before Reinhart already took the shot. Florida just evened up with the shots with that, the shots on goal with that. So they're starting to even it up now. Matthew P says, yeah, I'm waiting on the other shoe to drop on the Mets. They're losing to the Yankees tonight. Man, that would suck for Juan Soto, wouldn't it? But I don't care about that. It's playoffs time. Yeah, I'll worry about baseball when it's time to worry about baseball, which is the way the Braves are going. I might not have to worry about it come October. Matthew Tkachuk is an elite player. I'll never argue otherwise, but he's another one of those guys that he does a lot of things incredibly well. He's not a great skater. He doesn't have to be with what he does, but when I think of great skaters, Matthew Tkachuk is nowhere near the top of the list. Doesn't mean he's not a good hockey player, but okay, for example, Justin Williams is one of my favorite players of all times. Not a good skater. Not bad, but in the grand scheme of NHL players, not a good skater, especially near the latter part of his career. Dylan Bollinger says, so with all that, does Nadeau come up next season? Doesn't seem like there'll be room. Yeah, they'll make room for him in some way or another, because it even sounds like Rod wants him there based on the interviews and everything like that. But if Roslovic and Jankowski are gone, there's room for Nadeau right there. So neither one of them are coming back. Dylan Bollinger says it depends a lot on free agency. I think Nadeau might need a little bit more time in the oven. That's the other thing to consider with it too. Like, I've watched the Wolves a decent amount, but I haven't really taken as much time to watch Nadeau as I would like, who would be the number one person that I would look at. He's going to get a look in some capacity or another next season, whether it's during the first 9 games before they would have to send him back down after camp, or because of an injury. He will get a look next season. I guarantee you that will happen. He will get an extended look at some point. I think that will be when he makes his case. But someone who can score like that, if you don't acquire, okay, let's say, for example, you don't acquire a free agent, Nadeau will probably make the team out of necessity at that point. But he's getting close. But his developments at that point, oh, shit. Florida's starting to own the zone here a little bit, but Toronto gets it out. At that point, he might have to make the team out of necessity, but it all depends. He's at that point in his development where it's like, okay, do I make the jump now or no? That's the tricky part of it. All Canes Network says Rays in the 2021 playoffs. At least the Astros won the World Series the next year. Yep, you guys most certainly did. Oh, and by the way, people who still want to talk about the sign stealing thing, the Astros were not the only ones stealing signs. They were just the ones who got caught. The amount of cheating that has been done, the 2 most cheating sports in the history of the world, baseball and NASCAR, dead serious. In those 2 things, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. The Chicago White Sox had a fence that moved 15 feet forward and backward, depending on if it was the top or the bottom of the inning. And if you think that, people setting up their race cars don't cheat, they cheat more than fucking John F. Kennedy did on his wife. Matthew P says Matthew's definitely playing through an injury. Yeah, he looks off, dude, because he just looks a little bit slow. Matthews is always playing through an injury. Yeah, he's playing through something. It's just he looks a little off. Ali Yasmin says no way they re-sign Rolex. Yeah, no need for him. So that's a potential spot for Nadeau right there. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of the roster players is traded, one of them. And then, not to mention, William Carrier is going to miss 35 to 40 games next season. It's just the way it is. That's why he got a long-term and low AAV. The guy is basically he's like a 13th forward that gets priority to play when he's healthy. And when he does play, he is fucking effective. The only game he's played in this playoffs that I thought he was bad was the one where I thought the entire team was. And Matthews just went down the tunnel. The only oh, I got him in the face. Shit. Ali Yasmin says he's not the step 96. He's the 96 that stepped up. Yeah, I miss. I will hate to see Rolex go, but there's just no need for him. He's been great in the playoffs when in the capacity that he's been needed for. But as far as being a long-term member of this team, he only plays center in emergency situations, as we've seen. But he did well, and he's played wing more of his career than he has center, and we don't need anything like that, because anybody we would acquire in free agency, if it's Ehlers or Marner in particular, there's no debate there. Those guys are upgrades over Roslovic. Besser, maybe you could make an argument he's not, just because, Rolex has got the wheels. He's good at puck protection, and he wins a lot of faceoffs. And, Besser's a pure goal-scoring winger. That's it. And when he's not scoring, he doesn't do much else for you. I don't think the Canes are going to take a run at Besser. I really don't. So, it's okay to talk about, but I don't think that they're going to get him or even really try. But there's definitive upgrades out there over Roslovic. And then, not to mention, that does clear a roster spot for Nadeau if you need it. And if, let's say, you don't get anybody in free agency, bench monitor, too many men on the ice. Okay. If you don't get anybody in free agency, then you can just bring E-Rob back and supplement the bottom 6 and then sort everything else out from there. There's a multitude of ways. July 1st is going to be very interesting this year. It's going to be refreshing after July 1st last year when everyone else is like, oh, the sky is falling. We lost Pesci and Shea. We're never going to win another game again. I'm like, no, just the fuck up. We're fine. And ultimately, that is what happened. We ended up being fine. And I was a little bit worried about it first, but then when I saw Ghost was coming back, especially at the AAV, I'm like, Shea? Who's Shea? Fuck Shea. And then saw that Sean Walker was getting signed, and I was like, all right, we're going to be fine. In some ways, that I knew that defense was going to be better in some ways. Is it as stalwart as Pesci and Shea in their prime and preventing chances? No. But quicker zone exits, more offense, more puck possession is what you got out of Walker and Goss to spare. Matthew P. says Florida is buzzing. Yeah, they are. Kirby says Florida is going to score soon. I can feel it. Matthews is off to the locker room. Jenko is on the team next season. Dylan Bollinger says, yeah, he'll still be here. Unless they make a trade of some sort that involves him, yeah, he's still got one more year on his contract. That's why I was talking about the other day with why we need to keep KK. We don't really need to put a ton of the center depth is, like I've said before, and I know it's an unpopular opinion amongst a lot of people. The center depth issue is not nearly as bad as a lot of people have made it out to be. It's not remotely as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. Like I said, you don't have a clear-cut definitive second-line center. You have a high-end third-line center who's going to have to LARP as a second-line center for a little while, which is KK, and sometimes Jordo's essentially a second-line center based on minutes. So that's the only other thing about it. I don't think that's a problem they need to solve now, because if they get, more scoring by getting a winger or two in the offseason, so be it. Get enough solution, if you ask me, at that point. And then there's a prospect that Matthew P. here showed me that I'm going to do some research on that I find very interesting, that could be a really, really good long-term top 6 center option that the Hurricanes could potentially draft here in the future. But I'm going to do some research on him before I talk about it. But Matt, I've got him pulled up here. I'm gonna do that. All Canes Network says, Miss Tie Stick, holy shit. Are we keeping Robinson? I think that depends on what happens in free agency. I can see it happening, though. He's a great fit here. It's just we got to wait and see what happens because there's got to be roster spots for everybody, so we'll see. I would ink Robinson to I would have given him Carrier type of contract already. The thing that kind of disrupted that, I think he would have been signed already if it wasn't for the Canes extending Taylor Hall. And I know that I talked about who I'd rather keep from a salary cap roster construction standpoint, but they got Taylor Hall at such a steal that they cannot let him go. That was such a good idea. Yeah, Jank is under contract. I really hope we keep Robinson. Robinson is great. Matthews is back. Goals, points, cap hit. Mitchell Marner, 27102, 10.9 million. You're going to have to translate that for me, buddy. I don't understand what you're saying. I'm sorry. Oh, I see what you did there. You copied and pasted something. Okay. All right, I get it. Never mind. I'm sorry. I understand. You copied and pasted that from Puckpedia, didn't you? All right, my bad. I got you. That post I made about how everybody's mascot is ultimately something that kills people, I did not expect it to blow up like this. There's one comment in here that says Maple Leafs don't kill in the traditional sense. The kind of hockey they play in the playoffs leads their fans, me in parentheses, to suicide. And that definitely counts. I hate to laugh at that. That's fucking funny. How much did it blow up? It's let me go look. 44.8 impressions, 30 comments, 20 quotes or retweets, 439 likes, and 22 bookmarks. Oh, wow. Someone took this shit really seriously. There's one guy here that says, search up Florida Panther attacks and you will quickly find while some species of cougars, what a Florida Panther is, may be aggressive and can kill people, you will quickly find that this isn't the case with a Florida Panther. Can't kill anyone if there has literally been 0 recorded attacks by Florida Panther in Florida. Under the right circumstances, they may potentially attack and kill somebody, probably, but they will much rather avoid confrontation than do so. If you aren't threatening the animal, it will rarely ever attack. If at all, attack hasn't happened so far, but you never know. Well, I can tell you this for a fact after reading that. I will most certainly not be the one testing that out. And if a Florida Panther did fucking kill somebody and it wasn't recorded, the person it killed is not around to tell you that the Florida Panther fucking killed it. But yeah, I'm not gonna go wrestle a fucking Florida Panther and get fucking eaten. Sorry, not fucking. Oof. Verhage hit the post. Matthew P says, "Okay, could you explain to me why everyone does the back pass on the power play entries? It seems to lose speed for no reason." Give me 1 second, and I'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to take a break here at the next TV timeout because I need to get some water, and that's an extensive explanation. Short version is they do it to force the defense back that's gapping up at the blue line to try and deny entry. And then when they're all compartmentalized, like right around the blue line like that, then they've already got all those guys up on entry. And ideally they have the team that's trying to enter has 3 or 4 guys up on the blue line and the penalty killers are already gapped up on them, or they've left a couple of guys back and they've opened up that time and space. So the guy who's coming in with speed, picking up the drop pass, has a lot more options of which lane he can take to enter. That's the short version. There's a guy that I follow on X. I can't remember his name, that posts stuff about that all the time. And his explanations are excellent about things. And he's actually why I started posting the special teams net percentage in the live stream slides that I use. Toronto did nothing with that power play except take a penalty. Yeah. I am going to grab a water real quick. Give me 1 second, gentlemen and ladies. Evan Smith asks, are there for real Panthers in Florida? Having gators and pythons is bad enough. So not like Panthers, like the same ones like the Carolina Panthers, like the big black cat. What they have is the Florida Panther. It's a cougar. And it's like typically, apparently, they won't fuck with anybody unless they feel threatened. They would more avoid confrontation, according to this National Geographic explanation that I got from this guy. Like, it was really detailed. Like, I'm not mad at it, but like, it's like there's no recorded cases of a Florida Panther killing somebody. Well, I mean, if there's no witnesses, how the fuck can you be certain it never killed a person? But I mean, I'm not trying to find out or anything, but yeah, essentially, they're like a cougar type cat. I don't know a whole hell of a lot about them, even though big cats are like one of my favorite things. I would never go near a cheetah or a lion or anything like that, but I think they're cool. I don't want nothing to do with them, but anyone else worried about seeing the Panthers in the ECF again? Maybe I'm just a doomer. Worried? No. Here's the thing. The last time we played them, we were short 2 forwards, 3 if you count Kasha. Andrei Svechnikov was having at that point what was his best season when he got hurt. No Pacioretty, who had 3 goals in 5 games in the short amount of time he was playing. And what it came down to was Frederik Andersen had some of the best stretches that he had as a Hurricane and of his career for that matter, kind of like what he's doing right now. And the goalie at the other end, Bobrovsky, played so damn well, he managed to outplay Frederik Andersen at his best. And that was impressive enough as it is. In addition to that, if you go back and you look at the advanced metrics of that series, Carolina was the better team 85% of that series. Like, for example, the 1-0 loss in Game 3, I think Carolina had like 5.87 expected goals or something like that and didn't score at all and lost 1-0. It was kind of the same thing with Game 1. And if I remember correctly, it was Game 1 and 2, I think they had a higher expected goals in all those games, but it was inordinately, it was a big difference in Game 3. And I think Game 4, the one that they lost, was the only one where the Panthers had more, and it wasn't that big of a difference. If Bobrovsky did not play as well as he did in that series, Carolina probably sweeps them, or at least wins it in like 5, because at that point, it wouldn't have even been close enough for the team in front of him to get it done. All the credit to the guys in front of him for not wasting Bobrovsky's effort, but if you take him out of that equation, Florida does not even come close to winning that series. That's just the way it is. And that's part of where the Gustav Forsling better than Slavin bullshit came from, was that series, and he didn't do a fucking thing in that series. All Canes Network says that feels like it's not illegal if you don't get caught. For the record, not recorded Panthers kill. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Leah, we had the worst luck 2 years ago. Yeah, and the other big difference is now Carolina's going in there fully healthy. So if it stays that way. Matthew P says Panthers will be tough. No way about it, but I want their ass. Yeah, me too. Like I said, I think we could beat either one of these teams. As far as a team, it would be easier to man, I love watching Sasha Barkov play. I hate the Panthers. Well, I don't hate them, but I dislike the Panthers. But Sasha Barkov is by far one of my favorite non-Hurricanes, and he has been for a long, long time. As far as a pure two-way center, he's the best one in the league. Aho might take that title one day, but for right now, that still belongs to Barkov. I think we could take either one of these teams. With Florida, you're looking at, like I said earlier in the stream, if you hadn't joined yet, with Florida, it would take Carolina utilizing every little ounce of home ice they have. They would, if they win that series, it would be because they won 4 games at home. I absolutely believe that. And then Toronto, I think that the stall line would shut down their top line, and that the penalty kill would eat their power play alive, and Carolina would get its net positives 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill predominantly. And they'd probably walk out of that with a kind of a low power play percentage, high penalty kill percentage, and, you know, have a decent differential 5-on-5, but not nearly as much as as we had against Washington. I think that would be a little bit more narrow of a gap. But if Carolina played the Maple Leafs, I think that they could take them in 6. If they play the Panthers, it's going to take 7, and they're going to have to win 4 games at home. That's the way I really see it happening if they manage to get past the Eastern Conference Finals. And then if that does happen, then we have to start thinking about playing in what's going to be the most annoying Stanley Cup Finals that we could imagine, with the Dallas Stars and Mikko Rantanen. That is going to be... Lee Yasmin says, surprise, Aho didn't score a single goal in the second round. No, but I was really, really, really happy with how he played his 200-foot game and how defensive he was. His penalty killing was great. You got everything out of him that you needed. I was really happy with him. Matthew P says, yeah, I've liked Barkov's for you as most complete center. Yes, I agree. Like he says, was not familiar with how ass the Leafs PP is. it's either going or it's not. There's no in between with it from what I've seen. Evan Smith asked, "Do we don't have home ice advantage against Florida? Do we?" Yes, we would have home ice advantage against Florida. Frankly, Panthers blue line is where they're the weakest. Yeah, right now, yeah. As far as like guys who are really good shutdown guys, Forsling is the only really good shutdown guy they have. And honestly, yeah, he's better than Chatfield, but by how much? Not much, if you ask me. And then, if you're comparing, say, Forsling and Walker, Walker brings you more offense probably than Forsling does. He's got a better two-way game, and Gostisbehere completely clears Forsling on the offensive side of things. And if Forsling were on the Hurricanes now, he'd still be number 3 on the depth chart. I know he's gotten better. That looked offside to me. I think Tkachuk stepped in just a little early there. Seth Jones is playing better than he did in Chicago, but he wouldn't even make the Hurricanes. He really wouldn't. Nico Heister is one of my favorite non-Hurricanes. I agree. He's also one of my favorite. Him, as far as centers go, him. Let's see. Barkov, Heister, Rupe Hintz, I really like. Tage Thompson, Dylan Larkin, Braden Point, Anthony Cirelli. There's a lot of really good two-way centers in the league I like, but that's the ones off the top of my head. Yes, we do have home ice versus Florida. Yep. He annoyed me so much in the first round. Yeah, he went down a little easy a couple of times. Oh, Toronto's hanging in there. If they actually manage to force a Game 7 and take it back to their barn, that's going to be something. All right, everybody. I will be right back. I'm going to take a quick break. If you have any more questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to put them in there, and I will get to them. Okay, all right. So everybody, guess what? We have a guest in here. You want to come say hi?
Oh yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
Grab the rodent while you're at it.
Yeah, I'll put away my cocktail for the moment.
Yep. Everybody, you've seen Butters, you've seen Frank. This is my girlfriend Desiree. And this is the little rodent. And, you've seen pictures of us and everything. She's never got to make it onto a stream or anything like that. So she's wanted to come say hi.
I was hoping I'd look better when I did. But
Baby,
you know what? Just be yourself, right?
Baby, you look fine. This ugly-ass little dog here, though.
No, he needs to put on his makeup.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. I fucking hate you. Oh, he's a good boy.
He is a good boy.
But yeah, no, this is 3/4 of the family, and the other one is down there.
Down there.
Frankie, come here.
Frankie, aka Satan.
Oh, don't call him Satan.
It's a joke.
Come here, Frank. Want a treat?
Oh, a joke. He can get a joke. You can't.
Want it? Come over here. Come over here. Sit. Spin. Lay down. There you go, buddy. But yeah, a bunch of them says hi.
Oh, okay. Hi. Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
God.
All right.
Nah, if y'all haven't heard, I absolutely love this little family here to death.
Yeah.
And that says something because I'm a pretty fucking hateful person.
Well, I'm going to go and watch my autism show. That makes me have anxiety.
All right.
That was a joke, Colin. You know what? That's always going to be my nickname for him.
Yeah, I know. It's funny.
And it doesn't mean I think he is.
Yeah.
I just bought him an expensive bed.
Yeah, I think he's gonna love that bed.
Oh, he's gonna love it. If he doesn't want it, I'm gonna put it in the washing machine. That's gonna be my bed.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna get his dog hair on it anyway, because once you start laying in it, he'll decide he wants to lay on it.
Yeah, right. When my smell is.
Yeah. Alrighty. I'm gonna take one more break, guys. I'll be back before the third period starts. But I need to get some liquid IV in me or something because I'm really thirsty.
Well, I pulled a bunch of them out of my.
Yeah, I know where they're at.
Okay, yeah, I got that in my Vegas bag.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm gonna come make myself one here in a second. All right, everybody. I will be back here shortly. Where the hell's my be right back comment? What the fuck? Okay, fine. I'll just make a new one. Alrighty, let's catch up on the comments here. Matthew P says, I'm telling you, Toronto will win tonight and lose Sunday. I could totally see them doing that. Would be helpful for the remaining series to go to 7. Yeah, I would like to see that too, but particularly to get Freddie a break. Evan Smith says, I hope they force game 7. LMAO Rob Gucci just QRT'd the tweet. What? For real? Let me see this shit. Holy fuck, you've won the Twitter heavyweight belt from some guy named Noah. Someone I don't see where he quoted it. This is a hockey show, man. I just mentioned like 2/3 of the teams in the NHL. The warning take, you don't care about natural disasters, probably don't support the troops either. I was in the military, dumb fuck. Did he have a stroke or something? Ain't reading all that. Wait, this is a hockey show? The time it took me to type that out, that took me like all of 3 minutes. People are actually upset about this. I wrote this as a fucking joke. I threw it together while I was drinking a Monster Energy drink getting my day started. What the fuck? I can't believe people are actually upset about this shit. Like, there's some people who are just like having a laugh about it, and there's other people who are actually upset. Penguins are known to freeze people to death. Huh, I didn't know that. That's a new one to me. I've learned a lot of shit about wild animals today. All right, enough of that garbage. Lackey says won the day with that one. I don't understand why people are mad. Like, someone called me retarded in the comments, and I'm like, bro, it's just some bullshit thing I wrote for the hell of it while I was waking up earlier. Okay, I'm not sure what happened there, but I'm back now. I'm here now. Okay, let me get my camera fixed here. I'm not sure what's going on with all this stuff. Take me just a second here. Apply. Okay. Got that. Got that. All right, that's fixed now. This is fucking hilarious. People are actually like mad at me for this shit. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, let me see if I can get the game stream back up here now that we got this working. Okay. Got the game stream back up after this ad goes past here. Leah says hi to the legend herself. Thank you very much. She just wanted to duck in and say hi real quick, and now she's hanging out watching something on Netflix. Thoughts on PK Subban? Oh yeah, you saw that thing that I showed in the group chat. Yeah, she said that thing about what's with that guy. He sounds like he's always confused. I'm like, yeah, he kind of is. That's kind of what's going on there. There's a video saying that PK looked confused. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Is he never not confused? Almost convinced he says shit that he says is a troll job. So funny thing about that. I watched. So I when I can watch other content creators, the hockey guy's one guy that I really like. I kind of modeled how I set this channel up in a lot of ways after him. Biggest thing is like I like the idea of the whiteboard, but I didn't want something that simple. That's why I started using the Google Slides. And he was talking today about, and I highly recommend this video, and that one y'all recommended to me by Hot Garbage or whatever his name is, Hot Garbage Sports or whatever. I'm going to check that out too because so many people told me about that. I want to take the time to really sit down and watch it. But I was kind of passively watching this this video that the hockey guy made while I was eating lunch today. And he was talking about the decline of impartiality and professionalism in national broadcasts. And he was citing a lot of the reasons for it was clicks and engagement. And I kind of feel like that embodies PK a lot. When he first came on ESPN, I actually legitimately thought like he was about the only sensible analyst on there, in my opinion. And even then, he wasn't perfect. In the last year or so, particularly since the playoffs started, he's been a little bit more... he's definitely gotten to where it seems like he's purposely saying things that will generate online engagement as opposed to doing what I understood his job was to analyze the game. And there's a lot of people who have that like attitude towards it in the media. Like I've said, when it comes to Paul Bisnet, for example, 51% of the time I agree with him. The 49% that I don't agree with him, I vastly disagree with him. Now, he's sitting in a studio getting paid however much to sit there and kind of blatantly cheer for the Maple Leafs on a national broadcast. And when I say kind of, I mean like explicitly cheer for the Maple Leafs. If nothing else, his attire gives that away. And I'm a guy who's clearly focused on one team sitting here in a sleeveless shirt and an old Coho hat. And I'm doing it like basically for free. I occasionally get to, oh, Toronto just scored. I guess Matthews ain't hurt that bad. Is that his first goal this series? Alrighty. Good evening, humans. Good evening, Devil's Joint, my good friend. All Canes Network says hasn't posted a single reaction video from the Canes versus Cap series. I wonder if he'll have any for the ECF. If Carolina starts losing, I bet you he will. Like, if I understand teams that you don't expect to go on runs, but like, here's the thing about it. When he was previewing, and it was on Sports Center, so I sure as hell didn't see it when it actually happened. I saw it retroactively. Florida's starting to push back here a little bit. I like Benoit. I know a lot of people don't, but, you know, he's the type of player I like. Tanev was a good pickup for them, too. I mean, a little bit hefty of a contract, but you at least know what you're getting from him. Yeah, he did a thing where he was talking about the Caps and Canadians in the first round. And he said the sky was the limit for the Capitals if they can get past the Canadians. And then he had all the stuff that he said in regards to the Hurricanes and Devils. And I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, does this guy just kind of put teams he used to play for on a pedestal? Now, one way that we'll be able to gauge that a little more, he didn't do that on purpose. There's no need to go after him. I know it's Max Domi, but he did not do that on purpose. One of the reasons why, like one day when the Predators, the Devils, and the Canadians are all in the playoffs at the same time, I want to see what he says about Nashville, and then I'll be like, okay, this guy is just literally like finding reasons why the teams he used to play for would win. That's what it seems like to me. But that's what it seemed like when it came to this type of stuff. And like they, you know, he says this stuff about, oh, they don't have Natchez, they don't have Rantanen. Natchez wasn't a good fit. Most talented player we've ever had, if you ask me. Natchez was not a good fit. And Rantanen was, well, we all know now why he didn't put a whole lot of effort in while he was here. And thank God he didn't take that deal and that we just traded him and we don't have to live with that. But that was one of the things that he cited. And that was parallel with people who don't really follow the Canes, just randomly citing shit on X and on YouTube and on whatever else, saying, oh, well, no Natchez, no Rantanen, and they're not going to get very far. That's a very rudimentary take. That's like a really basic type of conclusion to come to. And anybody who's paid to be analytical about the game shouldn't come to that conclusion. They shouldn't be coming up with the same things that randos on social media are. Lackey says he'll be forced to, when there'll only be one game a day, got to cover them eventually. Either that or he'll just find some other stupid shit to talk about. Nikishin's KHL hardest shot contest, shot clocked at 168.28 kilometers an hour, 104.56 miles an hour. I remember that. That was that I don't want to say that was last whenever the KHL has their all-star game. He did that last year. Hold up. StreamYard's being stupid again. Okay. Last night in his debut, he got up to 93 miles an hour. Yeah, I saw that. He had two shots on goal. One was 92 and the other was 93, I think. He forgot about the Devils, LOL. Yeah, and then somebody put the Jersey Devil in there, and that thing is fucking scary looking. I don't want nothing to do with that. Stream went down. Yeah, it went down for a little bit, and it cut out a little bit here for a second, I think, just now, because I clicked on things and it wasn't doing anything. Dylan Bollinger says, I hope they go to 7 games. It's looking like that could happen right now. I mean, pretty even game in terms of shots and everything. I think Florida's been a little bit better, but I've also not been intently watching this. I'm kind of glancing back and forth here. When I have 2 monitors one day, it'll be easier for me to do streams and watch games at the same time. Lackey says, seems like a night where nothing has a real good chance of going in the net. Yeah, so far it's been like that. Yeah, it might be 1-0, 2-0 with an empty net. Yeah. Do you think we offered Subban a contract? What a bum. Love Shannon, the hockey guy. Yeah, a lot of people hate on him and say that he's a Canes hater and that he's biased and all this other shit. No, Shannon is one of the least biased guys in hockey media. And another thing he talked about in the video that I watched today, he said he wished he hadn't revealed what teams he liked because he felt like that gave people ammo to criticize him, and he's absolutely right. That's part of the reason I'm like, I didn't hide who I was a fan of. But the thing about it is, and if y'all don't think that I do this, I want you to call me out on it. I think I'm pretty fair when it comes to criticizing the Hurricanes. Like I don't go into full on doomer mode 24/7, but I also don't, I also don't act like everything is hunky dory. And I don't think every time we get a penalty that it shouldn't be, or that every single time that one of our players catches an edge and falls, that it should be a penalty. I don't believe that. And, if I think a certain player is not playing well or something like that, I'm going to say so. If I think Rod's making good or bad decisions, I'm going to say so. I try to judge the team that I'm a fan of with all the impartiality that I can. Now, that being said, there are other teams that I do like to watch and that I follow. When the Coyotes were still a thing, I followed them a lot. I like the Vancouver Canucks for the most part. I like the Nashville Predators. There's other teams that I like to watch that I would cheer for in events that the Hurricanes aren't around. I'm not like out buying merchandise of them or anything like that, but there are other teams that I do enjoy following and like players on and everything like that. Lackey says, how funny would it be if it goes scoreless or AM34 gets his first ever second round goal to win it? That would, well, you see. Dylan Ballinger says, I think since Biz is basically kind of part of our family with being affiliated with the Canes, we have him ring the siren. Yeah, I think All Canes Network actually talked about that. Hot Garbage Sports coach Seth Jarvis as a kid. That's the one, Hot Garbage Sports. Yeah, I'm gonna watch that video later. I've got it bookmarked, but everyone has talked to me about that video, so I want to actually sit down and make sure I'm paying attention to it. That I'm not playing on my phone or eating or anything like that. Like I actually want to watch. Definitely check out Hot Garbage. Yeah, I will. PK is trying to be Biz. Yeah, nobody can be Biz. Like I said, see, here's the thing. I find myself disagreeing with Biz slightly less often than I agree with him. Now, as far as like someone I would sit down and, throw a few back and eat some wings with, I would definitely do that. I would absolutely enjoy hanging out with Biz and just bullshitting and being boys around him. Like I'd totally do that. Yep, you were prophetic. His first goal against Florida in the playoffs, period. Yeah, because he didn't score any when they played season before last. First ever goal past the second round, too. May have went off Forsling's stick. Oh, but he's better than Slavin, right? I'm just kidding. Nice shot by Matthews. Good reload by Marner. And players who do really good reloads like that, guys who get to the blue line really quick, but then can get back in the zone right after the fact once that offensive zone is retained, play really well in Carolina's system. And that's one good thing that Marner could bring to the table theoretically for the Canes. Evan Smith, you ain't the first person to recommend them today. Yeah, a bunch of people have recommended to me that Hot Garbage Sports video. Like I've got it bookmarked. I'm going to watch it. We've got some plans tomorrow. We're going to go to the farmer's market and do a couple other things. And then after that, I reckon I'll probably like check it out before I do damage report tomorrow evening. Matthew P says, yeah, I used to like Subban, but he's an engagement farmer now. Yeah, that's what he's turned into, dude. And it's sad because he was the only guy on there that I felt like was in any way remotely rational. TNT is immensely superior of a broadcast now. And it's still not perfect by any means. That's a good save by Wall there. All right, let me get this fixed again, guys. I'm sorry. Okay. At least the camera settings stayed relatively the same this time. I don't know what's going on with this. If that happens again next time, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it. I think he won the hardest contest hardest shot contest last 2 seasons. Yeah, he did. Matthew scores a lot by shooting low when so many shoot for a high corner. Yeah, that is a great observation there. How are the Hurricanes boring, but this game isn't? I don't know. Apparently their name is also really offensive for some reason. Like to the point where I've stirred up like this gigantic controversy about it. Give me 1 second, guys. Damn, now it's up to 559 likes and 900 or 99.3 thousand views. That was just some bullshit thing I was writing while I was getting my morning caffeine. What the fuck? It's always rock, paper, scissors with shooters versus goalies. Matthews is usually ahead of the curve in that regard. Yeah, I like the Avalanche. I do too. I liked them before they got Natchez and Drury, but I'm always going to cheer for Natchez. I really liked him. Believe it or not, I used to like the Rangers before we were in the same division in the recent playoff series. That makes sense. Now I hate their guts. Yeah, no, I feel you on that. Yeah, if Biz sounds the siren, it's kind of my fault. Yeah, it would be your fault, and I wouldn't be mad at you, but some other people might. As long as Biz is committed to making that team successful with his stake in ownership, I can care less what he says. I care more about what he does. And I've already decided I'm going to support. When given a choice between supporting a Washington Capitals farm franchise like the Charleston Stingrays or supporting a team affiliated with the Carolina Hurricanes that happens to be part owned by Paul Bissonnette and Ryan Whitney, I'm going to side with Biz and Whitney. Sometimes you don't always have a good choice. You know, sometimes you got to pick between Hitler and Stalin. So, not saying that either of them guys are that bad, but I'm going to side with what is ultimately the Hurricanes organization's affiliate in that regard. And I think their logo is pretty cool. The purple kind of throws me off a little bit. I think it would be cool if they went like to the gray stone type of gargoyle and then they could do like a Hurricanes themed like sweater along with it if they wanted to. Like you could go to like something that looks like the old alternates since they've got the gray warning flags around the bottom and then put the gargoyle on it from there and then put the warning flag, the modern 2 flag logo on the shoulders. Like there's a bunch of cool things they could do if they went that direction, but I don't hate the sweaters by any means. I think the logo itself is cool. I don't particularly care for the colors, but we'll see how it turns out in the full final product. The logo itself is pretty cool. Biz has my respect after what he did at the restaurant. Yeah, and the other thing about the restaurant thing, and I'm very proud of myself that I was not one of these people. There were a lot of people that automatically assumed that he started that fight. And I was like, okay, hold on. Biz doesn't seem like the randomly start fights with people in restaurants type of dude to me. Like I said, I've never met him. I had a chance to meet him and I didn't do it. There was a tournament I played in up in at the Flyers practice facility. And the first game of it was at the Hollydale Ice Arena. It was a veterans tournament. It was the Hollydale Ice Arena is actually where Tony D'Angelo grew up playing. I played in a tournament where we had our first game there really fucking early in the morning. And then we played a few more at the Flyers practice facility, and they had a get together and a buffet for us all that evening. And somebody said that Biz and Whit were going to be there, and I was like, they'd be cool to meet, but I'm just going to get back to my room, chug a bunch of Pedialyte, and get some sleep because we were playing the Vegas veterans team the next day, and they fucked us up. And the team I was on then was called the District Warriors, and Chris Murkowski, if you happen to see this video, fuck you. I ultimately quit that team because their captain headbutted me and tried to break my jaw and then tried to say it was an accident. And he was too much of a bitch to fight me afterwards. I gave him the chance to do it, and it took 3 people to pull me off of him. And I don't get like that. veterans hockey, beer league hockey, it's for fun. It's glorified. Veterans hockey is glorified beer league. But that guy pissed me off so bad because when he headbutted me, because I wore a visor back then, I'm wearing a cage now. I'm trying to stick with it. I wore a visor back then, and I'm really religious about making sure that my visor and my gear in general is good. So the screws were tightened on it, the spacers were perfect, everything like that. The dude, kind of he was a little bit taller than me. He fucking headbutted me, and he made it look like an accident, but I knew better because someone had done it to me before. Oh shit, they scored again. Bobby fucking McMahon just scored. Oh, wow. Oh, no, it was Patches. Okay. Ooh, let's see this goal. That was a great pass, and that was a great entry by Bobby McMahon, too. Great job jumping in the rush at the right time, too. Totally. So, Gustav Forsling's better than Slavin, right? That was him that Bobby McMahon just bitched, right? I'm just making sure I saw that correctly. But yeah, it's like I had a chance to meet him and Witt, and they helped put on that whole thing. Them and Pink Whitney did. The veterans thing. But yeah, that team I played for, our captain was he sucked. So I ended up leaving it and I joined another team called the Ashburn Veterans that I was already friends with all the guys on that team. So I went over there to play for them instead because that dude, the fact that he tried to break my jaw was one thing. The fact that and he did so in such an egregious way and tried to say it was an accident. My visor was almost parallel with my chin strap from him headbutting me. What I was more mad about is that he didn't fight me afterwards. Because if I tried to do some shit like that to somebody, I don't play like that. But if I tried to do something like that to somebody, at least I'm going to answer for it after the fact. But I've never done anything like that, not on purpose. I knew he did that on purpose. I knew that he did. And then he tried to say later that it was an accident and the president of the team got involved and we tried to work it out. And I was just like, look, it comes down to it. It's like you strip his captaincy or you kick him off the team or I leave. And I just decided that I already knew that they were going to keep him instead of me. So I left. What are you going to do, though? Now Lundqvist is the best former player, now analyst. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the stream was down again. If it goes down again, I'm done. I'll call it a night. I decided I wanted a team to cheer for on the other side. I picked the Avalanche. They won the Cup that year. Oh, that's cool. I think the warning flag will be our next Prime logo. Yeah, I like it. I want the 25th to come back, though. Man, I've got 2 of those. I love it so much. What restaurant thing? So Biznet, he was trying to calm down some. He was trying to calm. Apparently, there was some sort of dispute. I don't remember exactly what happened. I remember reading about it. There was some sort of dispute in there, and he was trying to de-escalate the situation, and then a bunch of them jumped him. And a lot of people before all that came out were automatically assuming that he was the one that was talking shit and started a fight with people out randomly. And I'm like, okay, look, I know a lot of people don't like what Biz has to say at times, me included, but he doesn't seem like the start random fights in restaurants type of dude to me. Having questionable hockey takes as far from being a randomly violent person in a restaurant for completely unprovoked. Those are 2 completely different things. Kirby says E2-0 Leafs. Patches. Likely Dagger, but I'm not counting Florida out yet. Woo, game 7, let's go. AB, what's up, dude? Just saw the quote tweet. Yeah, I didn't expect that to blow up like that. I was literally just drinking a Monster and typing bullshit while I was waking up. I did not expect that to be such a big thing. Alrighty, let's get back over here. I can't believe Pats is still good or even playing after Zdeno Chara tried to kill him. That and the torn Achilles and everything. Travis C., hey, buddy, didn't know you were on me hoping for the Leafs to win the series. My friend is a big Leafs fan. Wouldn't mind a 2002 rematch. Yeah, I wouldn't either. And, one of the things I was talking about when it looked like Columbus was like making a push to make the playoffs and maybe even get in Metro 3, I was like, I kind of want to see that just because that's one of the biggest drawbacks of this playoff format. I feel like it's the same matchups over and over and over. Like, I would, now that the Canes are making the playoffs again consistently, I'd like to see something different. It's like we played the Islanders 3 times since we started making the playoffs again. We've played the Rangers 3 times if you count the bubble year. We've played New Jersey twice since we started making the playoffs again. We played the Bruins 3 times since we started making the playoffs again. It's like we're playing the same teams over and over, it seems like, and it's just that's why I don't like this format. All right, empty net situation here. So let's go ahead and watch and see what's going on. Damn. All right, let's see who they got out here. Seth Jones, Matthew Tkachuk, Sasha Barkov, Sam Bennett, Carter Verhaeghe. They're going to be out here probably for the rest of this game. Those guys are. Matthew P. says, I will never not feel gypped about Patch's time here. Yeah. And, I don't know how much of it's true or anything. I heard about, like, oh, they rushed him back and, that kind of messed things. I thought they were going to bring him back. And, when he went to Washington, there's a short that I posted a long time ago when I was talking about who the Hurricanes might bring back. And this was like when I first started the channel. This might even before you were watching, Matthew, and you were one of like my earliest subscribers. I said something, Carolina should bring Pacioretty back on a $2 million 1-season deal. And he signed exactly that in Washington, except he got a performance bonus for games played, I think it was. So I don't know if he had a little bit of sourness towards the way the organization handled the stuff with his Achilles and everything like that. But I was really hoping Carolina would bring him back. But if we went in the playoffs with him, even with not having Svechnikov, then I think that conference finals, maybe you don't get a different result, but I don't think it ends in 4 games. Perpetual same matchups was intentional from the realignment to create rivalries and ratings. Yeah, see, I understand that, but I personally don't interpret it that way. I mean, if you have to manufacture a rivalry, it's not a real rivalry. I never did like this format. And the other thing that pisses me off about it, a lot of that realignment stuff wasn't just done for that. It was also done to accommodate Vegas. Like, this league is bent over backwards for Vegas, and it kind of disgusts me. Because I don't want to see what that franchise is going to be like when they're bad for a few years. I don't think they're going to maintain their population. I really don't. But this format creates rivalries. Yeah, they just don't feel like real rivalries to me. It's like, for example, I feel like the reason New Jersey and us are such good rivals, or such notable rivals, I should say, is because of things that went on between Carolina and New Jersey before the realignment, like the shock at the Rock and all that type of stuff. Also, no one will ever convince me otherwise. Division realignment was designed to put the Canes in a death spiral against the pretty boys of New York teams, Washington, Jersey, and Pittsburgh. Dude, that's a valid observation there. And my dad said something similar at the time because he's like, this realignment doesn't make any sense with why are we in the same division as the New York teams? And we were in the Southeast division with Washington before. And we were like, wait, why is Nashville still in the Western Conference? Like they could be in the East. They're like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And he's like, I think that they're doing this to kind of force us to relocate. I'm like, oh, wow, that's something. But, thankfully Tom Dundon bought the team and everything has gone pretty damn good since then, relatively speaking. No cup yet, but we're getting there. Need the 1v8 seeding with reseeding. Yeah, I would love that. I would be totally fine with that. Like if you go back to the 1v8, back in the day when it was 3 divisions of 5 in each conference when there were 15 teams, the top 3 division leader or the division leaders made up the top 3 seeds regardless. They could go back to doing something like that now where the Metro and Atlantic division or the division leaders in general automatically make up the top 2 seeds, even if you have like second overall in the Eastern, or if the first 2 teams in the Eastern Conference, let's say, are in the Metro, then the second place team is going to be the first team in the Atlantic, even if the second place team in the Metro has more points. Like when it was that way, it was better because conference games meant something, division games meant something. That realignment was just incredibly stupid. Well, and Matthew Kachuk doing Matthew Kachuk things. Y'all got to protect your goalie. You already lost one, so that's the final. Game 7 should be electric. Yeah, I'm going to look forward to watching that one. Good for Joseph Wall. First career postseason shutout. Did it on 21 saves. That's pretty sick. Told you all now Toronto will break their fans' hearts yet again. Yeah, that would suck for them. It really would. Oh, boy. Yeah, we'll try and do this again for Game 7. All right, let's go ahead and close that there. Pull this back up. All righty. All right. Matthew P says, night all. Good night, buddy. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm going to kill this here in a little bit because I'm ready to lay down and relax. Your post has gone off the deep end, by the way. Yeah, I saw that. The 2 most viral posts I've ever had. Okay, so I've had 2 of them. The first one I was sitting at. So let me backtrack a little or rewind on this a little bit. There was one day when me and my girlfriend lived in Northern Virginia, we worked at the same building. And she hits me up on the little chat app we have there. And she says, hey, do you want to go to Cheesecake Factory later? I'm like, no, I don't really want to eat sweets and I don't like cheesecake. And she's like, well, they sell more than cheesecake. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, you've never been to one? I'm like, no, I thought they only sold cheesecake. And I was like, well, the name is the Cheesecake Factory, not the Cheesecake Factory and Other Foods Factory. So my tiny ass brain, I was just kind of like, oh, I guess they only make cheesecake. I'm not going to go there. Well, it turns out they make a lot of really good shit. Like they have these fritters that I really like and the sauce that they put them in, it's really good, but that's neither here nor there. So I got off work before she did. So I go there and I'm typing, I'm like just playing around on X. And I randomly decide to type up player grades for Team USA in the 4 Nations face-off. It was just a bullshit thing that I just was doing for fun. And I'm just like, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like giving grades and everything. And I remember I got to the end and I gave Noah Hannafin, his grade was trial for treason. And I'm trying to remember. There was someone else I wanted deported to China. And I wrote like Luke Hughes or Jack Hughes get deported to China. Like something like that. I didn't even list all the players. Well, she showed up. So I just hit post and went on about my day. I wake up the next morning and the first thing I see, I don't wake up, I should say. I go home later that night and I open my phone and like AB and some other guys are hitting me up like, yo, look at this. And I'm like, what? And this post totally blew up. And there were like a lot of people who were like, oh, cool, Puck now. And there were other people calling me a retard and all this other shit. And I'm like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. It's just some bullshit thing I threw together. And then it had almost 1 million views on it by like a day later. And I was like, okay, I was not expecting that to blow up like that. That was just something I wrote to occupy my time till my girlfriend got to the fucking restaurant so we could eat. And then there was this one, and apparently what I wrote is a profound big deal, or it pissed a bunch of people off. And out of all the things I've wrote that have pissed people off, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But okay. Dylan Bollinger asked, Nikishin breakdown debut video coming soon. Yes. So what I'm going to do with that, there's going to be twofold to that. One, I'm going to, I will be doing a live breakdown of the video where I just kind of do what I'm doing right now and have the video up and talk about some of the stuff he did, kind of talk about it on the fly. And there's going to be one where I do a side-by-side breakdown between his debut video and the one that I made about him a couple of years ago that had all the graphics and arrow breakdowns and the verbal analytics and all that type of stuff. I'm going to do a side-by-side of that. And that's going to be an over the summer project, the latter. But I don't see any reason why I wouldn't do just the regular breakdown video within the next couple of days. It just kind of depends on what we got going on. And I'm starting a part-time job next week until I get my full-time job in August. So I'm going to see how much of my time that takes up. I'm going to work as many hours as I can. And I'll do my best not to miss any games or streams or anything like that. But like, you know, it's life. I got to work. So, and I don't get paid for this, and I probably never will. I've accepted that. So now I just do it for fun, fulfillment. And honestly, I like the little community that has come of it. So another thing is I'm really happy with where I live now. I didn't like living in the Washington metro area. So here I'm just kind of enjoying life a lot more. So I go outside a lot more. I go do things a lot more. So in the future, you guys probably won't see me. In the future, you guys probably really won't see me on here as much as I used to be, because I'm getting back to doing things I enjoy. I started skating again last week, and I've done that a few times. I'm probably going to start playing beer league again at some point in a few months, and I'll still do stuff on here, but I'm not going to spend nearly as much time on here as I did before. All Canes Network says, I had 2 posts over 100,000 views. The video of Chatty falling and a repost of Kachuk sitting on KK that went pretty far off the deep end. I remember both of those, especially the latter, because I was in Florida at that game when that happened, and I got into a couple of disagreements that evening with some people online. Kirby says, good night, y'all. That's a very cute cat, by the way. Frank the Tank says, let's go Toronto. Dylan Bollinger says, make Biz ring the siren against the Leafs. Yeah, that would be pretty funny, actually. Good night, chat. All right, boys. I'm going to wrap it up and go to bed and then wait and see what comes of this post that was just a bullshit for a little fun thing that apparently now is pissing people off and taking everyone else by storm. All right. Y'all have fun. I will see you next time. I will try to stream tomorrow. I will post ahead of time, whatever the plan is, but we're going to go to the farmer's market tomorrow, and then I'm going to plan the rest of my day around that. And then we got plans on Sunday, so I probably won't be doing anything on Sunday. I will talk to y'all later. Y'all take care. I will see you next time.